Hello and good evening from the Channel studios here in London for your international news around the world in 5. The World Health Organization has suspended trials of the malaria drug hydroxychloroquine because of safety fears.
This concern relates to the use of hydroxychloroquine.
The decision has come after a recent medical study suggested the drug could increase the risk of patients dying from COVID-19. The drug was recommended by US President Donald Trump, among others, as a possible treatment for the virus. The World Health Organization also urged countries to put in place measures to prevent a second wave of COVID-19 that has infected over 5.5 million people around the world.
Countries in Europe, countries in North America, many other countries around the world in Southeast Asia have to continue to put in place the public health and social measures, the surveillance measures, the public health measures, the testing measures, and a comprehensive strategy to ensure that we continue on a downward trajectory and that we don't have an immediate second peak.
Hong Kong's leader, Carrie Lam, has said other countries have no place interfering in the territory as she defended a controversial national security law planned by China. The law would ban treason, secession, sedition and subversion in Hong Kong. Critics have said it would limit the city's freedoms, but in her weekly press conference, Lam has said it was a responsible move to protect the law-abiding majority and that it would not impact the city's rights and freedoms.
Hong Kong's freedoms will be preserved, and Hong Kong's vibrancy and core values in terms of the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary, the various rights and freedoms enjoyed by people will continue to be there.
A senior politician in Somalia's semi-autonomous region, Puntland, has died from coronavirus. Ismail Diriri Gamadiyed, the Minister for Environment, was being treated in Puntland and was later transferred to Mogadishu. His death was announced by Puntland's state president. Meanwhile, Ivory Coast has become the first country in West Africa to reopen its schools after a 2-month break due to coronavirus pandemic. With over 2,300 cases, Ivory Coast has not yet contained the virus, but authorities there have said that numbers are unlikely to peak after the introduction of extra hygiene measures. Other countries in the region are likely to follow closely whether the decision to reopen schools will lead to a spike in new infections. The first of 5 Iranian tankers carrying fuel to Venezuela has docked at a port serving the El Palito refinery. Iran is providing Venezuela with 1.5 million barrels of gasoline and refining components in a move criticised by US authorities as both countries are under American sanctions. Venezuela has been suffering gasoline shortages due to underinvestment and US sanctions aimed at ousting socialist president Nicolas Maduro. Bethlehem's Church of the Nativity, the traditional birthplace of Jesus, has reopened to worshippers and tourists as Palestinian authorities have begun to ease coronavirus restrictions in the occupied West Bank. Amid pandemic concerns, the church has capped access to 50 people at a time and required that they be free of fever and wear protective masks. There have been 423 recorded coronavirus cases and 2 deaths in the West Bank so far. Unions and social organisations have protested across Ecuador to reject economic measures imposed by President Lenin Moreno in the face of a strong economic crisis amid the coronavirus pandemic. The collapse of world oil prices and the effects of the pandemic have reduced state revenues by around $8 billion. This has put pressure on the government to cut public spending by reducing the working day and closing several public entities. The measures led to widespread protests despite a strict lockdown due to an increasing number of COVID-19 infections. Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Orbit company has tried and failed to launch a rocket over the Pacific Ocean. The booster was released from under the wing of a jumbo jet, which had been specially converted for the task. The rocket ignited its engine seconds later, but an anomaly meant the flight was terminated early. Virgin Orbit's goal is to try to capture a share of the emerging market for the launch of small satellites. And finally, in the Kenyan city of Kisumu, hundreds of residents have gathered on the city's biggest highway flyover to work out. The Kenyan government closed sports training facilities in March as part of measures to contain the spread of COVID-19, leaving athletes with nowhere to train. The early morning training sessions have attracted hundreds of people, including basketball players, footballers and dancers. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.